Chris can't.
Okay, all right. So Lola will take this out. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, later.
Yeah.
Chris,
Yeah, the line is really breaking.
Can you start the explanation?
I will send Chris a DM. It's fine. His network is very bad. You guys should just carry on.
Let us stop recording.
So, like I was trying to explain, earlier, why do we have that in the first place? Basically, within the last few lessons, we created a repository, and the essence of the repository is just like a container where different QAs, developers, we are working on different branches. So everything that we're working goes into that repository, that container that contains all the code that everybody is, or every branches that contain all the code that everybody is working on. So you can imagine, I'm working from home, you're working from whatever location you are in, and then I'm sending my work into the repository. So each time the work comes in, what the CI does for us is it triggers basically. So it's build the pipeline and to make sure that everything is still working okay. So that's where you're going to see something has failed, basically. Because imagine if it doesn't trigger, if you just push in your code and it stays there, nothing happens. How are we going to know that, the main repository is still working? So why we're going to find out that everything is still working okay as codes are coming in is when we have the CI pipeline working. So like the name says, it's continuous integration. So you're continuously integrating all the codes that are coming in. And then that's the first bit of the pipeline. The second bit is the continuous delivery. So as you're just not doing the pipeline or the repository for fun. You're creating an application for a client, and then at some points, maybe every 2 weeks or whatever the delivery time is, you have to deliver the application to your client. So as you are integrating your code, basically, and then the other section of the pipeline will take care of delivery, continuous delivery. So after the code is run, you're going to have a build. So that build number, usually called the artifacts, basically from that run, is what you're going to deploy into your continuous delivery section. And then there's going to be other staging sessions on that, depending on what the organization configuration is. Maybe you need to have some product owner approvals, dev approvals, or QA approvals before it's finally get delivered to clients. So that's, in a nutshell, what CI/CD is: continuous integration and continuous delivery. Yeah, I hope that explains that. But before you can do that, basically be able to do that, you have to have a repository in this place, because you're going to be taking your code from your repository, because your code comes into your repository and then the build starts from there. So you cannot create a pipeline if you don't have a repository. So we'll be able to do that because we already have a repository. Whether the repository is working is another thing. If it doesn't work, it will fail, essentially. And then that brings us to another level of our learning to be able to trigger or to go into the pipeline itself to see what has failed and what has caused the fail, basically. So are we okay to move on, yeah?
Yes, please proceed.
Good. So we have got a repository, and yeah. So if you can go to the pipeline. Then I believe we're going to see create new pipeline or something like that. Okay, so there is 2 ways to create a pipeline. You can create a pipeline from a YAML, what they call YAML file, basically, or you can create a pipeline from what's called classic editor. using a classic editor, basically, you'll be able to give in the configuration. So you know the configuration that you need for the pipeline, because you'll be creating a pipeline based on the application you're building. Basically, if you're building a desktop application, if you're building maybe a mobile application or web-based application and all that. So you already know the kind of framework you're using, .NET framework or whatever framework you're using, basically. So all those information, if you're creating a pipeline, you already know, basically. So when you're using a classic editor, so you'll be selecting, template based on the project you're working, based on the application you're working on. If it is a mobile application, if it's a desktop application, if it's a web-based application as well. So they have to bear that in mind as well, basically, while creating your. So this occasion, so we'll probably try to do the two. If we see the first one to see Azure repo git YAML, basically, because basically we are creating, and again, different organizations have different environments where their repository is being hosted. Here, for example, we're using Azure DevOps, and thankfully our repository is hosted in the Azure DevOps. But if you're working with what's it? I can't even remember the name now. What's this common application as well that we use apart from Azure? Jira, yeah. If you're using Jira, for example, so the Jira doesn't have a facility for hosting repository within that environment. So they use Bitbucket mostly. So they need to use another plugin, Bitbucket, to host the environment. So that's why we have here basically, so you can see different hosting environments. So you have Bitbucket there, you can have GitHub there. I think we have had a lesson on GitHub sometime as well. So where you can host repository. So you now select whichever environment your code, where your code is really in, basically. So on our case, where our code is in Azure repository, yeah. So we can select that. And again, here, so when we come here, this next, you can see what is on top. They say select the repository, yeah. Because bearing in mind, again, in one project, sometimes you can have more than one repository, yeah. So you have to go know again, which repository are you taking your code from? For example, if you have like 4 or 5 repositories, so you need to know which repository is your code coming from, basically. So that's what this is representing. So for now, we have just one repository, yeah. So that's not an issue. So we can easily select the repository that we want, basically. Then that is what I was talking earlier when I was talking about the different configuration that you will have. You can see you have ASP.NET, you have ASP.NET Core .NET Framework, you have .NET Desktop, yeah, you have Xarem, Android, maybe if you're working on mobile application. And so based on whatever application you're working, so you're not going to select the configuration that suits your application. So my question will be now, based on what we're working on, what do we think will be the base template we're going to use on this?
.NET Desktop.
Are you sure? Is it a desktop
.NET
application
Core.
we're building?
.NET Core, because
Yeah, I think
1.6.
because we're not building, if we're building just a desktop application, basically, yeah, but we are building a web application, isn't it? So I'll see .NET Core, so the ASP.NET Core, that's fine. So if you select that. So what the YAML file does for you, basically, is, so most of this configuration is already set up for you. So it's kind of makes life a bit easy. So you only just have to do a few changes because if you look from the top, you see the trigger is from the master window latest. If you're scrolling down through variables, solution, CPU release, so we really don't need to do much on all those. We have just, I think you're going too quick. Steps, have NuGet packages in there, so that's already been configured. Task, I think that's probably where we're going to do some configuration. Go move that again. Okay. Right, so we'll have to test. Yeah, and then, so as the test is where probably we're going to do, set up do a little bit of configuration, because that's what we're going to do, setting for our test to be coming in, basically. So if you click on that setting on the test VS tests on the setting, so it should open a window on the right side, yeah. And then on this window panel, basically, just a bit of let me, if you scroll. So what we have, scroll up a little bit, basically. Where we have, where we have the test. We have tests, yeah? Can you see test file? Yes. Inside that test file, where we have test file, then we're now going to put in the name of our repository where the test is going to be coming from, because that is where the test, where our test is residing, basically. Yeah. So,
right.
So if we remove that, just that test alone, and then put in the name of the repository, if you can go copy the name of that repository and put in that place.
Yeah. So is it this one, Chris, where you have just the test?
Yeah, that test, yes, that's, yeah. Yeah. Just the test, nothing else.
Yeah, just the test, yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. And then if you scroll down, that's pretty much that in terms of scroll. Yeah, okay. Run test in isolation. So it's all these other settings, just depending on the kind of should I say, your organization, for example, maybe you want to run tests in parallel, you want to run tests in different compartments and all that, basically. But we don't have what that. So the most important thing for us to just get this running, and then we now can get our trigger sessions set in place as well. I'll show you how you guys how to do that. And then yeah, okay, that's fine. So if we can save that, either we can save and run, yeah. And just save, just click on that on top arrow. Yeah, just click on the drop down.
Yeah, and then save.
Save. Yeah, just save. Yeah, just save. Yes. Okay. So that configuration that I probably want to show us is there's another save button on the bottom side of it.
Yeah, would you
save.
like me to save that? I don't
Yeah,
have to
yes.
do anything. Okay, cool.
Yes, save. Yeah. Okay. Right. So if you go back into the pipeline, okay, it's already highlighted, isn't it? And then what I want us to do, can you just click on run first? Try to see if we can run it first of all. Run. There's a run button down.
View
So
H.
if we click on that job, basically where you have job. Click
Hello,
on that.
please.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, can hear you.
Response, please. Did you click on commit directly to the master branch before saving the other time?
No,
Sorry?
I didn't click that.
So the tool was open. You didn't click any.
No, I just saved it.
Oh, but I met my kind of ticked already. Commit directly to the master branch. After clicking save, it didn't go through.
I don't know if you will have to also create one from your side. I'm not too sure. Maybe Chris will have to confirm that because.
All right, continue. No worries.
So I didn't get your question, yeah?
Okay, before saving the other time, I tried to save, it didn't go through. The part Azure pipeline specified in add operation already exists. Please specify a new part.
Yeah, maybe I have to see. I see your screen to understand what you're saying.
Okay.
So basically, these are different different sessions that's when your pipeline is running. That's what this happens. Is basically the same thing that happens when you're trying to run your Visual Studio codes in your build the solution, add in your NuGet packages, build your solution, and then before running your test. So so that's basically what the stage, all those various stages that is going on basically. And then before it will come to run your test, and then if run is successful, then you have a build. Like I said again, is that build now that you're going to deploy into your CI CD for continuous delivery. So the I think it's on the NuGet package now, basically.
Okay.
Can we all create our own pipelines?
I have a question, please. So because I think what Ola was experiencing was that he was trying to also create the pipeline and run it on his own end. How many people can run it at the same time simultaneously and the same pipeline?
That's the question. Yeah.
Can we all do that on our own line, on our own end too? Or
No,
Without causing conflicts.
I'm actually trying to do the same things, but I was kind of denied. So exactly,
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
you should.
what
That's
I
what we're
I think
asking.
that's why.
It would, because the okay, like when we
Without causing
see
conflict.
hello, yeah. What happens? So when because we are running this on a visual machine basically, and there's going to be an allocation. Understand? So when you trigger a run, it's going to be on the queue until there's a availability for a machine to run that. So if someone is already running this, basically, you can't run it again because you can only see, like, if we have the same like configuration now, for example, if you're running it on your end, on your computer, if I log into my computer, I will see that my colleague is already running it. So you cannot, because it's the same thing. If you're working in an organization now, yeah, and then the QAs comes into the CI environment and someone has already triggered it. If you log in, you will see that it's already triggered because it's the same environment that all of you are using. It's not a different environment. If you understand what I'm trying to say. So if someone has already triggered it, you can't trigger it again because it's the same thing. if I log in as I'm watching it now, if I log in into my computer, it's the same thing I'm seeing. So I'm going to see that it's already been run. So you're not going to trigger it a second time because someone has already triggered it.
Okay.
Okay, noted. Thank
But
you.
I see that the VS test is, there's an error.
Yeah, there's a fail. So you can see that test failed there, basically. There was an error. So yeah, so that's part of what we're going to be learning as well, how to troubleshoot those fails, because you can see there's a fail there. And then we need to go into that to see what test has failed and then what option that is available to us. So, but I don't think we can go into all that today. So, but what we can do now is let's show you some configurations again that you might have to do within the, so if you go back onto the pipeline again, yeah, at least the pipeline is running, yeah. So that's fine. So what we need to do now, as we continue to build our code, add it to it, and then we, yeah, and then if you, sorry, where you have a, okay. If you click on that 3 dots, that is beside the run new pipeline or something like that. If you click on a edit pipeline, see. So you can still come back here if you want to make edit. What I'm looking for is where I'm going to do, okay, triggers. So click on that. If you, now there's some button you click before. If you go back, so triggers, yeah, if you click on that. Yeah. Okay. So here is where you do your scheduling of when you want this pipeline to run. If you click on that add button, then we can see days of the week. We'll say, okay, if we want the pipeline to run Mondays to Friday or to run even on weekend as well, yeah, on this occasion, we can say really run on weekend as well because we want it to be running every day of the week. So if we can take Saturday and Sunday.
Did you say I should take on Saturday and Sunday?
Yes. And then we can set up the time. Which time of the day do we want it to start running?
In midnight.
Usually, you probably want it to run before the work starts. Basically, maybe when everywhere is quiet. Maybe like in my own place, we do trigger it to run because we have 2 different pipelines. We trigger one to run 3 a.m. and the other one to run 4 a.m. So all those run and be ready. So by the time you resume work in the morning, you go and check the pipeline and see what has failed and what has passed. So we can do maybe 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. basically. And then, yeah, and then so there's another important, you can see that tick below the time, only schedule build if, yeah.
So should I click on it?
Yeah, so this runs, that says only build if a source or pipeline has changed. That is not what we want, basically. I'm looking for, sorry, I'm going to. So what that says basically is, yeah, take that as well. So because that what it's saying, apart from running in the morning, yeah, apart from running all those days of the week that we've taken and the time, and again, we're asking it again that is where the integration comes in. So we're saying that if there's a change in the code, basically, it should trigger. So whether it is outside these times, basically, that we have asked it to run. If maybe someone pushes a code now, basically, the run will trigger. We can try it out after this. So we can just go and make some changes and push it into the repository, and we can see that the run will automatically trigger, so that's basically what this is all about. And then if we can now save this changes that were made. Yeah. And then save. What's that information that is there? That's on your, what is it saying?
Yeah, I think he asked if I should put any comment.
This pipeline will not use any schedule. It's a decline in the ML file to use schedules from ML for delete all schedule triggers from this. So it's a kind of warning basically. So because you're setting up your own schedule basically, so it's telling you that the original schedule from the YAML file is not going to be using that. So we're happy with our own scheduling, so that's fine. Yeah, so basically that's in a nutshell about CI basically using YAML file. Any questions, basically? I see that end up confusing everyone.
Yes, I have a question, a quick one. As in the question is, why is this particular test failing? Knowing fully the fact that most of the, the project itself, most of the tests there passes.
Yeah, that's that. If when I was trying to explain, basically, when you're part of what you're going to be doing, that's part of the job you need to do. And I won't be able to say why it's failing. So it's part of what we're going to do because you need to see, because this is really what happens. Your test will just be you work on your Visual Studio, you push your code, and then boom, the test fails on the pipeline. Then you just need to find out why is it failing. I don't know why it's failing basically until we go into it to see why it's actually failing. Now, sometimes, you might have to run your code in headless mode. So we might have to configure that within our Visual Studio for our codes to be running in headless mode. So because if it runs in headless mode, it means that some places that we're having element interception, that will be eliminated, because if you're running your code in headless mode, it doesn't trigger, it wouldn't be triggering the windows that we're seeing. It won't be triggering. So it just be running without triggering anything. So, and that's probably the best way to run your tests within the pipeline. So you wouldn't have a problem of element interception or something like that, basically. So we might have to do that within our Visual Studio to run our codes in headless mode. So that helps as well to resolve like some of the false failure you might be getting in your pipelines. But yeah, so that's another way, something to look at as well. But like to answer your question, I won't be able to know why it's failing until we do a troubleshooting to check why it's failing actually. And so in some cases in pipeline, you might be getting false failures. And then those false failures, what I mean by false failure, you go check you see that particular test case is failing. When you come back to your Visual Studio, you run it, is passing, yeah? The only thing you could do is to look at your code and you might need to do a bit of a refactoring of your code, or maybe your test cases or your test step is too long, maybe runs more than 1 minute, because for example, in my organization, we try to see any tests that run more than 1 minute, we need to break it down. So we want every test to complete within a 60 seconds. If we extend that, there's tendency of failing basically. So these are the things that you might have to be considering while writing your test basically. Not for the step not to be too long. If the step is too long, you need to probably look into breaking it up into smaller test units, basically. Yeah. So basically, what I'm trying to answer your question to say, yes, tests will fail. Part of the job we're looking is to go into the pipeline to see why is that test failing, basically. So that's part of what we need to do as well as QAs.
So if I may ask, from what we did, so those that really passed, what can we infer from them? I mean, what are the information? I mean, why are we running CICD? The one we run, what are the information we can get from them?
Like I explained before, we starting. Yeah.
Can I add to that? I've been raising my hand, but it's like you're not.
Okay, sorry.
So I just want to add to the question. Sorry, I need to get it clear before you answer that. For this, what we just done right now, it appears like we're just running our setup. So I want to ask, do we already have any code on this already while we run? And I think it's still a kind of framework. And when we run the framework, it doesn't usually fail at the start. So now, is there any code we're running on right now? Just my question. Then you cannot go to the next question where what he was trying to ask. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. To answer your question, those questions. Yeah. Let me take the two. So if we go back to a repository, yeah, repos. And then, so these are what we have in our code. So if you go to like features, yeah, and then click on any of those features, and then so this is the test, I believe, that have been worked on. Someone has worked on this, and this is a scenario that someone has worked on, yeah. And then if you go back to another, let's go to another feature and see another feature that's there. No, yeah. And then so these are the features that have been worked on already. I'm assuming that someone has actually worked on this because I can see feature steps. So I believe that the step definition has been done. I believe the page object has been done, because if it's not been done, there's no point pushing it into the repository. Do you understand what I'm saying? So you must have completed your work before pushing it into the repository. So if all this work has been done, yeah. So this is because remember, when we're creating the repository, what the repository that we took is this repository, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the repository that we took is this repository. So this repository contains all these tests. So to answer the question, the code that's been run is all the tests that is contained within this repository. So as you're adding more tests into the repository, yeah, when you run your pipeline, those tests will be running within your pipeline.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So the other question that I asked about was the benefit of this. But the benefit of this is because this is from where you're going to deploy to your clients or whoever you're building the application for. You want to ensure that before you deploy to the client, that everything is working okay. So because all the codes that all the QAs and the developers are coming into this repository, are in this repository. Yeah. So, and you want to make sure that everything is working fine. So you first of all want to integrate everything together before you deliver it to your clients, basically. So what you're doing here, basically, you created the repository. You're now taking a build from the repository to make your CI pipeline. So that, and then in creating your CI pipeline, what you're saying, if a new code comes in, run this new code with the existing code to make sure that this new code is working well with the existing code, that is not breaking anything. That's the configuration that we did set for the other time. Apart from certain days, we have another tick box that we set to say, as a new code comes in, run this pipeline as well. So if this thing is passing now and someone pushes a code that is not well done or that is failing into the code will fail, and we'll be able to know who actually have pushed this code or has caused this thing to fail, basically, because there is an audit trail. So for everything that you push in, maybe the code is passing now, and then next minute you push something in and it fails, we'll be able to go back to say, okay, this has passed at this build, someone pushed something this minute, and then after that push, that is when the code started failing. So we'll be able to know that it is when you pushed something in that the failure that occurred, basically. So if we need to revert back, we'll be able to revert back to the old build or something like that. So I don't know whether that answers that question in terms of benefits.
It was really perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, Chris, can I also ask a question? So I think from what you're saying, you did mention if your organization is outsourcing softwares to other organizations. So what if your organization like produces its own softwares and you still have a CI/CD for your organization, or do you only have to have CI/CD if you're outsourcing it to different organizations?
Yeah, if you see from what you're just saying, this is just for you to make sure whatever application you build, whether you're using it in-house or you're outsourcing it to other organizations, one of the ways you can keep a tab to ensure that it's working okay is with this. So you just imagine for all these applications we're using on a daily basis, how does Facebook know that everything is still working fine? How does Google still know that everything is still working fine? So they have to have a way to monitor what is on daily basis, that to know that the key element, and that is why when you're doing automation, really, what do we really automate? We're automating key elements, basically. We are key functionalities, and that's where the essence of this is about regression, really, because you want to catch any critical failure at any given point in time. So if there's any critical failure in application, your pipeline will tell you immediately there's a critical failure. Even before the user notifies you, you probably will know because your pipeline, is failing because it runs maybe continuously, depending on what time of the day you want it to run and all that, basically. So it's for you to, whether it's an in-house application or outsourced application, yes, you still keep some bit of pipeline to ensure that your application is continuously working. Otherwise, if it fails, you might not know when it fails, or unless someone notifies you.
Thank you.
Sorry, I have a question. Let me ask. So you said all the things we put on in our repos, this thing will check if there is any new intruder that can disturb or cause it not to run properly again. But the question is, we've asked the question before, does it mean only one pipeline should be created, or all of us can create pipeline without causing conflict?
No, it don't cause conflict in a pipeline. If you I want us to understand this pipeline, basically. Let me just go back a little bit again. You've already dealt with your conflicts and all that when you're pushing your codes into the repository. Yes. Your repository is like a container, that contains all the codes that's all the QAs are coding. I don't know how many we are now. We are all doing different codes and pushing it. So that's one single container that contains all the codes. And before any of us pushes something into that container, it needs to be approved. That's what we are trying to establish here, basically. So you don't just randomly push anything into that container because you're going to have a test lead. Yeah. So your test lead is going to look at what you're pushing in to ensure that, okay, this is fine, okay, approved, before it goes to that container. Otherwise, it remains in that branch. That's why when you clone your repository in the first place, it is a crime to work on the master branch. In fact, it's a sackable offense to work on the master branch. Yeah. So once you go into work, you clone your repository, the first thing, maybe because, and that is what we're trying to introduce here again, so that we will know that we don't normally create repository using our names, because you're going into work, you're going to be having projects, and sometimes they create this repository using the feature that you're working on, or the user story you're working on, yeah, or maybe bug or whatever, or task basically. So that's how they create branches. So they've given you this branch to work on, or the feature to work on with your team, your developer. Two of you are working on this login feature. So you will now create a branch, maybe a login branch, basically. And then after you finish working on that login branch, you now push your code to go into the master, into the main container now. But before you can go into that main container, which is the master, your QA lead needs to approve it. Another person is working on the registration page. Another person is working on the footer page. So equally, they're going to create a branch for registration. Another person creates a branch for the footer. And then when they finish, they'll push the code again into the master. Before it goes into the master, the test lead again approves it, and it goes into the master. As soon as he hits the repository, it goes into that master, yeah? That trigger will happen, because a new code comes into the master. So it will trigger to ensure that everything is running. The essence of that, you just want to make sure that everything is still running okay. Nothing has been broken as a result of these changes that is coming in. Though you've checked it in your local, the QA have checked it, but you can never say never. Basically, you just you have to be double sure that everything is really working okay. Yeah. So it's not like there's going to be an intruder. There's going to be an intruder anywhere, because everything is checkmate. There are so many gates basically as you push your branch. Before it goes into the master, it needs to be approved, and that's why you have to work from a branch and not from working from a master, basically. Because if you work from a master, whatever you're doing is going straight into the master, so it wouldn't need approval, basically.
Thank you.
Please, sorry. So after all the approval and the check, so there's still possibility for the test to still fail during the
yes,
the run on the pipeline.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, there's still possibility. So that's part of the QA job, basically. When someone monitors the QA, that's a CI pipeline environment to see what checks have been done. Yeah, because for example, again, talking about approvals, yeah. Let me just give us how this thing works, because when you say your QA lead is making checks, basically, it might be that a bug is fixed, yeah, and then you're pushing that bug into the repository. You may tell your QA lead to say, okay, because there's other failures that maybe when you're, okay, I don't know whether this is going to confuse us now, basically. I'm just trying to say, even with the approval, there's still sometimes that people will introduce issues into the master, either because when you're doing, because before you now, what happens, we talk about down merging into your local, yeah. For example, if a bug is finished fixing a bug, you do your sanity test. We know what sanity test we test around the area to ensure that any other feature that bug fixing will affect, we're testing to make sure that those ones are still working okay. That's what our sanity test does, isn't it? Hello?
Yeah, we are here.
Yeah. So when after fixing a bug, yeah, what do we think we do after after a bug is fixed? I just want to have a discussion. Maybe there's a bug in the login page, and that bug is fixed now. So how should we test again the application?
Regression.
Yeah, we'll run regression. Yeah, and then when you're
Regression, yeah.
running regression, basically, what are you just testing that fix alone?
No, you will do regression to check other dependency.
Yes. So you do a regression to check other features that might be affected by that change that's been made with that fixing that been made. Yeah. And then sometimes when you're checking those other areas, they might fail because they might be failing, but when you run it locally, because they're failing, and then you check it and you say, oh, it's running okay, it's checked it, or maybe you didn't even check it at all, basically. Because sometimes we can largely seen and you felt, oh, it should be working fine, and because of the time, maybe there's so many reasons why you might want to, you're under pressure, basically. Are you not finished this thing, basically? And you just say, okay, since you've tested the other one is working, and then you just say it's fine. And then your QA lead will approve it, and then it goes in, and then the staging fails. They'll still come back to you because they will know it is the branch that you pushed in that caused it to fail, basically. But sometimes we can be so much under pressure that we can just say, we can just think it will, we don't need to run this full regression because probably going to take time, and then you're under pressure and you have not finished it. And then maybe some regression might require you to do some code changing and all that. Maybe you're struggling with that, and then you feel like, okay, somehow this thing is going to work. And then you just tell your QA lead that everything is fine, and you ask you, did you do regression? And you say, fine, you've checked and everything is working fine. Maybe he didn't check, and then he approves it, because he won't go back to do those checks. He will rely on the information that you've given sometimes, basically, believing that you're going to do the right things. Yeah. So I'm just telling us ways that the issues can be introduced into the application as well. Yeah.
So Chris, I want to get this clear. I know this is not what we are doing today, but when it comes to regression testing and retesting, so is it after you do the retesting, that is when you have to do the regression testing?
What do you understand retesting? Retesting is basically maybe a bug is fixed, and then you're retesting that particular
functionality
that's been fixed, basically. Now, regression is just like you're now running, like I just mentioned now, you're just necessarily testing other features, not only the one that's been fixed, but you know that fixing this regression might affect maybe registration because they share same similarities or the same kind of code, or it might affect maybe if you have a feature to say forgotten password that has to do with logging again and all that, or maybe you go into the payment section that you have to do some login and all that before making payment and all that. So you probably check areas that have related to that fixing, that's been done. So that's regression, basically. And then when you're talking about regression, that's an interview question that comes at times. How do you select features that you go into regression that that you automate, basically?
Can you say the question again?
As in, when we're planning our automation, yeah, because you can't automate everything. Yeah, otherwise you might have an application and a framework that grows so big that it will be failing, because if your application is too large, big, and then you're keep on adding tests every day, adding tests, and then your test becomes so large that you just be failing because of just so many tests and all that. And you have so much useless tests that you're probably not supposed to be there. So, but you need to plan your automation in such a way that, you know, you're testing key functionalities, really, not really just automating everything. Because the essence of your automation is for regression purposes, most importantly, to ensure that if any key functionality fails, you'll be able to capture it. Yeah. So when you're planning your testing, what consideration do you have in terms of, oh, I'm going to automate this, or I'm not going to automate this?
So I think one is a feature that has got like repetitive steps, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe
And
if they
also
depend on each other.
Sorry, something.
So maybe if they depend on each other.
Depend on each other.
The features.
Trying to understand. Depend on each other.
I mean the features.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, but okay, for me, basically, yeah, so the consideration for me, I'll say, yeah, you need to consider your critical element of features, basically, you know, for application, you know, features that are probably critical. For example, still using login or registration. If your customer cannot log in, if they cannot register, that's a very critical functionality, you know. So you want to make sure that that is working. You want to make sure that maybe a step that has so much repetitive step, a step that is too cumbersome, you know, in terms of doing it manually, you know, might introduce a lot of errors, basically. A step that has too many data, you know, there's so many, you know, elements to that, basically. So you want to automate those kind of functionalities, you know. So these are some of the consideration one might have to be taken in, you know, when you're deciding, okay, because these are situations that you want accountants at work, basically. Otherwise, you might have to situation that you keep on automating, and then what the manager wants to say that this is working fine, you know, and if keep on adding so much code that not needed or functionality that is not necessary, doesn't necessarily need automation, you're just making your framework to be unnecessarily big, then chances of introducing failures will be there as well. Right. So what do we? Is everybody happy with this now, or do we still need to go refresh on that again?
Yeah, we're okay. We don't mind if you can proceed on how to, you know, rectify such error that was being or such failure on that test that we run.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm on the same page with everybody.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
All right. So let's go back into the. So 1 minute, please.
Hello. Hello, why you do that? Can I ask question, please? Hello.
Hello. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, I'm back now. Yeah. So if we go back into the pipeline, yeah.
Yeah, I think someone wanted to ask a question.
Oh, okay, that's fine. Yeah. Yeah.
So I just wanted to ask, from your experience now, well, I've tried to check. I'm not sure, but I just think I should just ask. Anyone can answer. If you've got from experience, the kind of features that cannot be automated.
Well,
you talked about features, those you can avoid the other time, but can we just have an idea?
Yeah, it's the approach here. Basically, if you're looking at an application and you're thinking, I'm just trying to think of my head now.
But I think how about applications that like their requirements like changes a lot, like we change in requirements?
I wouldn't say anything that they are changing requirements. Even if there's a change in requirements and then that functionality is critical to that application, you still need to automate it basically. You know, you still need to automate it because you just want to be sure that it's working, or to automate or functionality that is prone to error. Basically, you still want to automate it because just thinking about it, basically, just in automation, you want to make sure that it's not for fun. We just want to catch failures as quickly as possible. You know, so if we're thinking about something that if it fails, basically, it wouldn't be a showstopper for the business. The business will still run. So that's probably how I look at it. If this thing fails, basically, it wouldn't be a showstopper for. So sometimes this kind of thing triggers, like for example, where in the team I work with a lot of Indian QAs, and I tell you, those guys can automate anything basically, sitting down, standing up. They can, you understand. Now, when I joined the organization, we have thousands and thousands and thousands of test cases. And then every day we're having fails, and then they're mostly false failures. And then we're having when you look at this test case, you start to find out, why are we automating this? Why are we automating this? So it's something that when you look at it, it's showing that this is trivial, really. It wouldn't, if it fails, yes, but it wouldn't cause any harm to the application. Or maybe the user is going to notice sometime, and then that can be fixed. So it's not going to be an issue. So it's something that you just take it from application basis in terms of what is it that is not going to be causing an issue. Like here we are in Blue Sky today. It might not be an issue for us because our application is not large. Yeah, it's a very small application we're working on. But when you consider like you're working a very large organization, large application that is going to be, and it's a continuous improvement is going on the application. And then so you just need to start considering things that goes into your automation because to reduce failures, really. So what we try to do, basically, we now try to segregate our tests into packs. Like we have what we call a sanity pack. So all the feature that we think that is very critical, we goes into that pack so that anything fails in that pack is a P1, is a showstopper. You're gonna stop everything you're doing and make sure it's fixed. And then we now have the general one that is okay, anything, you can throw anything in there. If it fails, fine. We know that anything that fails within this place is not going to be too much an issue. It can be fixed anytime. But yeah, I'm just maybe when we look at into maybe the application we are working on now, we can start looking at how things that we might say, oh, this might be trivial or this can be automated. It might be argument both ways. Someone might say, okay, yeah, we need to, but just need to. What I'm trying to give out here, because I've been asked that on an interview, really, how do you decide what you automate really? And just to know those critical thoughts of how you select or make the decision about your automation is quite important to know.
Yeah, so Chris, I also came across this question, and I think with some of the answers I got was like maybe ad hoc testing, for instance, features that are for ad hoc testing, exploratory testing, those ones like with the user interface testing and all of that. Such features you don't automate them. So, for instance, if you want the background color of an application, those minor features, you don't really have to automate them.
That's basically, so basically what you think is not critical to this application, really. If a search functionality is not like a critical to the application in terms of if you don't use this search function, or this search function is not working, but if a search function is critical to the application. So it's a decision that has to be done on basis of the application, on the when you because you are working on the application, you have seen the requirement for the application, and then you've seen the user steps and all that. So you'll be able to say, okay, how critical this step is to the user. So if it's an application that has to do with a search, basically, that before you can do anything, you just need to search. Now, if I can find that search function is very critical to the application, but there's an application that some website you have, there's a search function, but people really don't even use it. Right. So it's something that has to be decided on the basis of the application or based on the feature you're working on, really. So I'm not sure that's a straightforward answer to that, to say, okay, this is what it should be. But like you mentioned, background color and all that, yeah, those ones can be, we can know that this one is not really going to be issue if it's not automated. Right. Okay, so are we happy to progress then? Or still have more questions on that?
Yes, please.
Oh, no more question, you can proceed.
No more question, we can proceed.
Okay. All right. So we've gone to can you like move back one step for me? Well, are we seeing this many runs? We just had one run, isn't it? Okay, can you click on that build number? So that one I was talking about build number earlier, yeah? That's the build number you have. That's a hash 202 blah 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 blah. Yeah, that's the build number that will come from when you have for every run that you have a build number. And then it's just this build number now that probably if you're going to go, maybe depending on the organization as well, they're going to be deploying to your CI section of the pipeline, but we probably will cover that next time. So if you scroll down on that, scroll to the, so that place you have a job. If you click on that, so you're going to open this new page for us, basically. And if you click on the view, view log information, and then it will now open up this log section for you. So basically, this is where you're going to see any fails that you've got. And then if you do Control F on this page and type fail, so if we go through that, basically next, and then you'll be able to see areas where we have failed, basically, and then so it's kind of sometimes a pain, sometimes to go through this stuff. So you can see failed area there. What has failed? If you go next as well. So it's telling you test file matched, blah, blah, blah. Go next so that we can see how many failed did you say we have?
Oh,
I think those are the first. They are 10 in numbers. So
yeah. So it's saying 1 out of 10.
Okay, 1 out of 10. So you can see there's 10 failed. So you can go through that basically. If you go next, it will take you through all those 10 fails. So you'll be able to see from their headings and then at what points fail, what fails at what point, what test case failed, if it's a test case that's failed. And then what you can now do, you can now go back into your Visual Studio to fix those tests as well. If we go back one step again, if we come off that page now, if we go back one step, make sure something else.
Yeah, I think.
Just
And
click on the back arrow there, Susan.
No, and no, I think it opened a new page. So do you want me to go back to
Yeah, where we're coming from before.
Yeah, I have this thing plugged in. Hold on a second.
I think if you use your back button, that will work.
No, I think it opened a new page. Oh.
Not back button on the
Wait, hold on a second. Is it here? Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want us to go back to the
Is it where we had the
pipeline
fail?
itself.
Or you want us to the pipeline?
And then if you click on that pipeline again, the pipeline itself, just click, yeah, okay. And then if we click on, have summary, you can see summary.
Yeah.
Then click on test. So that will give us a summary of, so have 0 pass. So basically, our test is not, maybe I'm not sure all those tests are completed really. So because there's it's not picked up any test basically. So here we should be able to see the number of tests that passed or the number of tests that failed. So you should be able to give us a summary of all the tests. Maybe if we have 1,000 tests, we'll be able to say, okay, 20 failed and that's number 5, but it didn't pick up any test. We're going to look into the pipeline and see what is there in the pipeline. And then, okay, so that's probably, so that will give an idea of what tests has failed. So we can see the test cases that failed here, first of all. And then we can now probably go into that log now to see detailed information about what has failed. Right, so yeah, so we can't get much here now because there's no test in there now. So I think we need to go into the pipeline and see, into the repository and see what we have.
Is it here, Chris? Or
No, let's see, because you can see that test area has shown us that there's no tests. Yeah, we didn't pick up any tests. So what we now do, so what is just failing that we're just saying here is just the processes that's failed, but they didn't pick up any test. Yeah, so we should be seeing, maybe if we have 20 tests in total, we should be able to see that out of 20 tests, 2 failed, 18 passed, or something like that. Or maybe if everything failed, we can see that the 20 tests failed, basically. Right. So I think what we need to do first is ensure, let's see what we have in the repositories, basically. But in a nutshell, that's how to set up the pipeline. So if you go to the page objects, and then step definition.
Yeah, Chris, so can I also ask a question? So if you have like thread.sleep, I know most of the time they say it's not like a best practice. So if you have thread.sleep in your main and you trigger it in the pipeline, can it also like affect your test cases when running?
No, it shouldn't. Your thread to sleep is a weight that you because you have a need to put a weight for that particular function, basically, so it's still part of your code, but like you said, trade or sleep is a no. It's not allowed, basically. You can only use it to maybe when you're working on your local to say, okay, does this thing require weight? Just to check if it requires weight. If it's maybe you're running your test and it's failing, and you don't know why it's failing, and you just, okay, let me put it check with trade.sleep to say if it's a weight issue. And now you put trade.sleep and you find that it's a weight issue. So you need to now put a proper weight there, not trade.sleep. So you can just use it to check if it's a weight problem that is causing your test to fail.
Oh, okay, thank you.
So what we can do is like we can switch back into the into Visual Studio if you can, and then to see if this code we have here is running actually.
Okay.
Okay, so you can what branch are you on?
Oh yeah, I'm on my personal branch. Should I?
Okay. Yeah, can switch to master. Okay, can you do go to Git changes? Yeah, can you do a pull? That's those 3 lines there. Yeah, can do it. Yeah, to see in case if anybody. Normally, this is a good practice as well. If you're working, yeah, always whenever you come into your Visual Studio, it's always good to do a pull. You switch into your master, do a pull. The reason for that, in case if someone has pushed something or there's a change that has been pushed into the master, so that you always have updated master all the time, basically. So there is no changes. Okay, can we now run this code to see?
Hi, Chris.
Yeah, hello.
Yeah, actually most of all the code failed, but I did 90% of it to correct the code, but I've not pushed yet.
Yeah, Yeah, Chris, it's not running for some reason.
Okay. Okay, I think we need to fix our whatever first basically.
Hello, Chris.
Hello.
Hello, sorry, you just said something else again. That whenever we're working, you need to do anything after you. It's good to come to master to do a pull, but you said it's not advisable to touch the master.
No, you're not working on it. You're only updating your master. You're not working on it. You're not doing any work. So what we just did, basically, like for example, just picture. I just want a picture in your head now. For example, you've been on holiday. Let me just put it that way now, yeah. And then your colleagues have been working and be pushing things into the repository, yeah. And then you come back from holiday, yeah. You're now on your laptop, and then open your Visual Studio, then so your master, the master that you have when you went on holiday will still be at where it is. What's changes has gone on, new things have been pushed into the master. So you need to pull that into your own master so that you have an update of the master in your system. Yeah. Do you understand? So you're just pulling something in. You're not pushing thing into the master. You're taking what is in the master into your. You're not pushing something into your master. That thing is already on the master. It's been approved. So you don't need approval to take it into your local. But you will need an approval for you to take something from your local into master.
Into master.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, sorry, a quick one. Invariably, it shows that you don't require any authorization to pull from your masters into your local.
No, you don't require authorization to pull from your master into your local. If you're taking from master, you don't require any authorization. Yeah, but if you want to push your branch into the master, you need to be authorized because you're introducing something into the master. I think what we're gonna what do we say we achieve here? Basically, we just probably get this one working, get it pushed, and then somebody says it's already doing that, isn't it?
Yeah, I've done some of it, which I've fixed the code and I've run like 90% of it, which passed, but I've not pushed into the repository yet.
Okay, can you show us what you do? I hope you're not doing that on the master, yeah?
No, it's on my branch. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. That's okay. Okay, I think with I don't know, we've not done much anyway, but at least we've done something to what's time now, basically? 26. Okay. I'm not sure what else we're gonna do, basically. Right, so we'll have a general discussion until
I think we need to fix the problem before we can proceed.
yeah, I think we need to fix that problem. But is it, or do we fix it now, basically? Okay, maybe we'll try to fix this, basically, and see. Yeah, because it's a good learning process as well to troubleshoot our codes, basically, and see. So maybe we'll try to do that. Yeah, if everybody agrees. So someone who says it's been fixing it, so then maybe we can share your screen and we'll see where it stopped, and then everybody will contribute, and then we can push that, try to fix the codes. Is that okay?
Yeah, it's me, Moses.
Moses. Is it Moses I know or something?
Yeah,
Moses, how you doing, man?
yeah, I'm good.
Moses not my boss. So.
No. You're the boss. I'm out for a long time. Just
Yeah.
coming back.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I think maybe we'll do the fixing of codes, and then we can now push. Unless anybody has any other different opinion. Apart from that,
Yeah, so
yeah.
Chris,
Sorry.
I just wanted to ask. So, for instance, when you get to work in the morning and one of your tests has failed, is it the test lead or the senior tester who is gonna prompt you to it? Because I know sometimes they sort of like attach an email to the settings so that when something fails, like you'll get an email notification that like you had a failed. I don't know how it works though,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, there's always so many emails. You can, in fact, there are so many emails that you can't even keep up checking emails about what fails and what's failed. Because, for example, you get so many messages from dev environment that this is going wrong. So there are so many emails. In fact, it's so many notifications. Maybe usually on Teams for us basically. So you get so many. You have a channel on Teams that will notifies you about all the failures, basically QA failures, dev failures, and all that. So it's not something that you want to keep on. Maybe someone is building a pipeline and it's failed. That notification goes in there. So there's so many and messages. In fact, I have to sort my email too because you have hundreds and hundreds of those failure emails that you might cause you to miss the important messages. So you want to keep those messages aside because you can't keep up with them. But for QAs, for example, one of my responsibility is to look after the staging environment. So the first thing I do in the morning is to go to check the staging environment and see what has failed and what has failed basically, and then begin to troubleshoot on that, to see what probably is the cause of this failure. Really, maybe someone has pushed something that caused the change, and then I'll probably notify those individuals to, look into the code that they pushed in, or if it's a false failure, then if it's a false failure that I've been failing for a long time, and then probably notify whoever has written the code to, can you review this code because it's causing problem really, need to refactor those codes as well. So yeah, so someone must be assigned to that basically. So it's not like everybody is going to be, so someone probably has to take, maybe QA is going to assign that responsibility to one of the testers basically to take that responsibility of monitoring the staging environments or the pipeline.
okay, thank you. Yeah, and one last thing as well. Sorry. So you mentioned refactoring of code. I don't know if we've already spoke about this, but with the refactoring of code, can you elaborate a little bit on that?
I think that assignment has been given for those people to present on that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's been will be covered in one of the presentations. Yeah, but it's nothing major. So refactoring, just that name sound basically. So sometimes you just need to for example, there's been so many updates within the application, changes, because as the application is getting bigger, changes, developers are making changes, and then things are being removed, things are being added, and things on that. So you have to get the point that code refactoring just needs to happen so that some line or some steps need to be taken away, a new one added, just like I've just mentioned, if a code is continuously failing, application, maybe you notice that this test case failed today, tomorrow is failed again, next week, and then when you run it locally, it passes. Yeah, but it's failing on staging. So you just ask this person to, please, can you look into this code and see how you can make it work better? Probably, that's kind of refactoring as well, basically. So it's just those things that change, the little changes that you do within your code, to make it work better. So someone is going to talk on that stuff.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah, I think another important that thing that we might, maybe when we get to that, is the elements, what's it called? I think there's a section on that as well. I think I saw it on that. Writing your CSS selectors, the expert and all that is a very good skill to know as well. As QA is going to be really helpful, basically. I don't know that you can customize or parameterize experts until I get into work, basically. So it's something to know. So maybe when we're going to do that, then probably going to add that into that session as well, so that we'll be able to know how to parameterize experts. And CSS selectors. Right. So if there's nothing there, then we might have to close early today. Is that okay? Let's see if any other person has something that we want us to discuss.
Yeah, Chris, sorry, one last one. I don't know if this is a relevant question, but so with API REST app as well, so with that one, does it also go in the pipelines?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yes, once you have a repository for that, then if there's anything that is in the repository goes in your pipeline. So because you create your pipeline, you have a repository, your API repository. So when you're creating your repository, you just pick that API repository, then it runs on your pipeline as well.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, I have a question, please.
Please.
Yeah, on your project, what are major documentation we do as a QA? Now, for whole organization, do we have to, do all the test plan and all? Because I got information like not all, maybe QA levels, maybe senior QA or something. I just want to know, have an idea.
Well, the documentation, yeah, well, it will differ from organization to organization, really. There isn't much in terms of documenting, when you talk about proper, type of documenting, but in terms of, like we just mentioned, like test plan, yeah. I remember when I started, we don't used to have like a test plan, but for every now we know what we do now is basically for every user story, you're gonna have a test plan for that. So what is in your test plan? Basically, what you're saying in your test plan is what you're going to do, how you're going to handle that user story. For this user story, for example, I'm going to be doing manual testing that. For this user story, I'm going to be writing automation test case automation. I'm going to be doing back-end testing. I'm going to be doing the API, basically. So you just cover those. So basically what that goes into the test plan for us, really. So it's not like, like the normal documentation of test plan that we, like you go to type of test plan now, you just see a lot of things. So it's going to be varies depending on organization to organization, really. So what again, in terms of like, because you'll not be thinking, okay, when you finish your testing, how do you get your feature signed off, basically? So it depends again, what does your organization require to get you signed off of your project, basically. So those are the closure document that you might be required if the organization needs that as well. So, but essentially, when you get into work, nobody will be asking you to write maybe like we say test strategy document or but test plan you might be doing. It have to be maybe do a test plan on the level of the user story you're working on. Or less if maybe you get into work and then maybe they don't have a QA process in place and they want you to produce a QA process for them, basically. Data phase, basically. I've been asked to produce a QA process documents. What's a QA will do? What is the expectation for a QA from the beginning of a test when we start to the end? How does QA navigate? What are the processes that will go through? So you can be asked to produce that kind of document, basically. So it's going to be a one-off thing. It's kind of template, so a kind of a guide to every QA. This is what we need to do from this test coming in and to the finishing, and any document that we need to produce. Apart from that, in the actual testing itself, really, is going to be on the basis of what your organization will need, basically. So the most important thing of QAs is your test cases. I don't know if that answers your question. Yep.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? Or we still were happy with what we've done so far.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned classic editor, really. I don't know whether we can still go into that, or because we just created one using YAML5. So that's another way, one way of creating a CI, creating a pipeline. You can use a YAML file, you can use a classic editor to do that as well.
Yeah, we still have time, we can do that. But we don't know if it's going to pass or fail also.
So when we troubleshoot that, the most important thing is troubleshooting the whole thing together and see. Yeah, because what's happening that this thing is not picking our test. So we just need to get tests sorted out, then push our test in there, and then we can sort out that.
Could it be that we need the developer to be on board?
No, we don't need a developer. Okay. No, we don't need a developer.
Okay.
I don't need a developer.
Hello, Chris.
Yeah.
A quick one. By looking at the screen on that project, I think it's been done by someone, that course link page. When you look at the, this line of code, line 14 and 15, where the person write the private by, I can see that the expert is having this figure. Can those figures be dynamic?
Yeah, so we wouldn't know until we run the application, and then because the only way you can find whether your application, whether your element is, I think, are you guys still hearing me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Is there any background noise? Okay, I think so.
Not at all.
Okay. Yeah, the only way you will know whether your element is dynamic is when you reload the application again. So if you reload this application again and then inspect that particular element, if it is dynamic, then that's going to change. So that's how you know that it's a dynamic it's dynamic element basically. So that needs to be, if it's dynamic, then it has to be changed.
And sorry, a quick one. Sorry for taking you back. There are situations whereby you're trying to inspect an element, using expert. It will, by the time you run it, will tell you the element, the expert contain div in such a way it won't be able to interact with the elements.
Yeah. If yes. Yeah. So depending on where you're picking your elements from, if you're when you're on your DOM, basically, just forgotten the name is called. If you pick that particular, I will remember. If you pick it, basically, you're bound to have elements not interactable. So it depends. It really depends on where you picked your elements from, basically. So you might have that elements not interactable. It's something that would probably need to be demonstrated. Maybe when you inspect the code, and then we'll be able to see. If I'll be able to go into a DOM, I might be able to see that. So when you have an element not interactable, it's worth to check to see where you're picking that element from. That could be one. It could be it could be as well the resolution or the your window setting. Is not the elements is not showing within the window setting. So and that is again where maybe running your code in headless mode can be helpful as well. So if it's the window setting that is causing that, maybe your window setting is not allowing the element to be in view, and then you can't click as a result of that. So if you run your application in a headless mode, you wouldn't have that problem. Yeah, there's quite few things to take in there, but we'll get there gradually, really.
All right, thank you. Rexford, over to you.
Oh, yeah. So, Chris, I just wanted to ask, I know this is not part of what we are doing, but if you have an idea of what...
I think we're on a general section now, because I don't really know what we're doing. So we're just a general section. Anything comes in.
You said you want to
just stop
continue
recording so that it wouldn't.
Okay. Okay.